Here we are, folks. Back once again. As many times as you'll let me. Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, John Bonham. You appreciate this, knowing there were no mistakes back then. You got into the studio and you started playing, start to finish. I'll tell you what, folks, if you can't appreciate that, you're not human. All right, everybody, welcome. Here we are, episode 4, the Bobby Couto Show. So glad you guys are back. Just want a quick announcement, real quick, in solidarity to my last podcast. I asked a couple of questions, one being, was it appropriate for a man over 30 to wear his hat backwards? And the other one was swagger. So in solidarity to that, I am wearing my hat backwards for the entirety of this episode, and I am also wearing my Tom MVP number 12 shirt because shout out to my buddy Joe. Thank you, Joe. Tom Brady was the answer that he gave. And you know what? I agree with him. I think Tom Brady's pretty darn fantastic in my book. One of my favorite people. Again, you know, when you're on top of the world, people are always gunning for you. So he's been able to overcome quite a bit. Granted, life has been good to Tom Brady. He did put the work in, you know what I mean? And again, I try to tell my kids, my son, my daughter, and now my granddaughter, both of which are on their way on an airplane to North Carolina. Probably not the best time to be flying to that part of the or region of the country, but then again, you know, you got to do what's best for you. So Maggie and Penelope, I miss you, and I hope you guys have a safe trip. So with that said, listen, I was back on point. I was talking about AJ real quick, and I wanted to get into education. So funny thing happened the other day. AJ and I sitting there talking, and and we were discussing his schedule at school. You know, I think as a parent, anybody who has children in school really need to, you know, be just engaged in some way, shape, or form with your child and their education. You know, it's probably not the best or most fun thing in the world to do, but, you know, ultimately, it's the right thing to do. And, you know, I think just like, you know, in our professional careers, as we get older, you know, everybody's looking for an attaboy or just you know, just the idea that somebody is paying attention and gives a shit of your accomplishments and your achievements. You know, our struggles are our own. You know, nobody really knows how hard you're working or how difficult it may be for you, although it may be easy for others. So, you know, I think as a parent or any guardian or someone that's, you know, leading the way for someone impressionable, you got to show some interest. So, again, not to get too far off subject, we're talking about his schedule, and I guess there's a new structure at the school that he attends, and it's a little different than what he's used to. AJ's a senior this year, and you know, he participates in soccer, and it's a real big part of his life, and I'm really proud of him for that because I think it drives him. You know, and again, in this day and age, and I could probably speak for most parents my age, if you have a child, you know, 17, 18, 14, 15, they're probably Fortnite kids and spend a lot of time playing video games. So, you know, the idea that, you know, he's participating in a team sport activity, he's played all 4 years there. So, you know, it really only made sense for him to go the fourth year and finish strong. So good for him. You know, I send him the best of energy. So back to what I was saying, we were talking about his schedule. And he said to me, hey, and I said, well, listen, if it doesn't work out, this whole new structure of the thing, I'm like, I'm sure there's adjustments that you can make. And he looked at me and said, no, absolutely not. I mean, what do you mean absolutely not? He said, we can't change anything. The way it is now is the way it has to stay, and we have to go the whole year with it. And I'm saying to myself, like, is that even real? Like, do we live, in a world like that is like just that's the way it has to be? I get the idea that you need to have some type of structure in the process, and that everybody can't be changing their schedule because for whatever reason, because maybe they're not in the same class with their friend, or it's not exactly what they wanted. But ultimately, when I think of that, I think to myself that listen, school, you spend a lot of time there. You spend a few hours a day. The majority of your day, and then they ask you to come home, and anybody who's been through the school system and that process, realizes that. It's a lot of work even after school. You know what I mean? You want to hang out with your friends, but you get homework, and then there's this that you got to study for certain tests and things. And and if you don't, it almost makes it impossible to succeed. You almost can't move forward. It almost becomes impossible to do that. I mean, because the way they've structured education now, homework is really a large portion of a child's responsibility, and their parents as well. I mean, I guess if your supervisor isn't, or your manager isn't pushing you, I think it makes it very easy to become complacent. You know what I mean? I think naturally the brain is always trying to find the easiest and shortest way to do something, and sometimes we get into a pattern of just the same thing day in and day out, and the mundane kind of creeps up on you, and you might not take that that procedure or that safety step to do it right. So, I do believe that there needs to be some type of, checks and balances for that. But ultimately, when we're asking our kids to spend this kind of time at school, we're talking, in my case, AJ's 17, going to be 18, and what do you want to do with your life at that point? I mean, it almost comes to it's almost like that guillotine moment, where you think you get into school, and from the moment your child goes to that first day of school, you're already thinking, hopefully they're a doctor or a lawyer, or someone, a police officer, a fireman, or someone that can change the world, or leave some type of legacy behind. And I think as myself, as a parent, that's what I want for my kids. I want them to always remember me and my ideas, and always remember that I always try to inspire and foster their ideas, and hope that they've will do and will always continue to do what they love most. That's kind of like what I'm doing here with you folks. I'm sitting here and I'm expressing myself, and it's amazing the audience that has come aboard. I'm proud to say that we're hitting that 100 mark, where 100 listens already. So when I think about how this is something that's just started and will continue to grow, although the effort that I'm putting into it is exponential. You can't just leave it alone. I can't come on here and just start talking and say things that I don't believe, but I have to prove and only express that the things that I'm saying are real. But again, it really comes down to opinion. So back to AJ and the whole idea of this permanent structure of this is how it has to be every day. It really makes me think about I've always had a passion about education, in the sense I have a little experience with training. I had a career with Comcast, a very large telecommunications company. I say telecommunications, but really a technology company. They're a company that is very smart, very cutting edge. They've got a lot of brilliant people at the tip of the arrow, with bringing technology and moving technology and information. When you think about the Verizons of the world, at this point, they they wouldn't exist. The Verizons wouldn't exist without companies like Comcast backhauling all of their information. But not to get too far off course, I shortly into my career there as a technician, I became the technical coach. So I really got involved in educating and teaching, and whether it was new hire employees, whether it was developing and implementing new processes, and just when you think about your internet and your TV and your no matter where you live, the cable platform is relatively the same. Really based off the same ideas. I mean, really, and they share the territories, to be honest with you. But when you think about those technologies and how they're brought to your home, it's pretty unique and it's pretty brilliant. So, the idea that we can, walk over to our computer, click a button, and then within seconds have watch or play whatever you want is pretty amazing. So, I had that opportunity there for a couple of years, and I trained, and I had what a rewarding time in my life to be able to impact people, have some type of change, influence, pride. All those words come to me when I think about that time in my life. I had the opportunity to work with such wonderful people, and even people that are in my life today. People that support the podcast, that listen. I don't know everybody that's out there. I only converse and communicate with those that are communicating on the social media outlets. Steve Silvestri, Joe Costa. I hope you guys don't mind me mentioning your names, but I really appreciate the support. But these are some of the guys that I had the opportunity to work with at Comcast, and they can attest to the it's not an easy thing to do. It's a demanding field, and you really have to stay on top of it. It's not something that you just kind of, hey, I do this every day. It's really understanding the technology and the philosophy, and bringing these technologies and the way that they're enhancing these technologies. Now remember, the cable wire has never changed, but the information that's traveled on it has literally morphed into something that is pretty brilliant and pretty cool. Because I mean, that's the technology that I use, and I don't think there's really anything out there that can compare. I mean, FiOS is right there with what they offer, but I'll tell you what, the cable infrastructure is built in a way that is really pretty brilliant. If you didn't know, even though you lose power at your home, it doesn't mean you've lost your cable service. Cable systems run on a DC power, so if you can find a way to power your modem and your wireless router in a power outage, you'll still have service, and you can still watch TV if you can power your TV too. It's a little quick tidbit for you. So back to what I was saying. So educator, I was training, I was implementing these trainings, I was developing these things, and really a rewarding part of my life that I always look back on, and I always remember, and it kind of humbles me because you tend to forget that people are asking questions, and when people confide and they trust in you, they trust what you're saying, and having that responsibility, I think, is important for everyone. I think we all need to own what we say. I think it's very easy to say things on social media and not own it, but to say things and respond to questions and be very confident in what you're saying, and being okay with saying, you know what, I don't know, I don't have any idea. So owning that stuff, I think, is part of the responsibility, and I think it's something that we lack today. But back to the education piece. I mean, I know I keep getting off course here, but it's a very passionate subject for me. So I can relate in the education end of it. Teaching people, and I always remembered, and I was always humbled, and I always thought to myself, listen, you teach people at the level that they can understand. I think relevancy, I think all around us is very important. When I used to teach people, I always used to try to use examples and apply things that made sense, because that's how I see things, and that's how I see the world. I try to simplify things as much as possible. I like to understand the things that I'm challenged by, rather than be intimidated by them. If I don't know, I'll try to teach myself. I'll learn. And true, to be honest, I'm probably more apt to read a service manual than I would be a novel. But that's not to say I'm not a reader. I just really, it's tough to me to find the time to actually sit and just focus on one thing for that length of time. I mean, like my wife, she can read a book in 3 days and it blows my mind. Costs a fortune. Keep her going. But feeding her book need at Amazon. God bless Amazon. All right, so back to what I was talking about. Well, the education piece. So understanding, that there is challenges there, and I think that today our teachers of the world, I think they're underpaid. I think college professors are way overpaid. I think we have it backwards right now. I think the bureaucracies of the universities, this whole thing with people paying, if you've got money, you can pay millions of dollars and get your kids some type of ridiculous, certificate that says. So I just still don't understand the concept of that. I mean, so your kids got a degree from Harvard, right? But that they didn't earn it. So I mean, what does that mean? Like, how does that? Is it because that you got into the school, and then what do you do? Like, do you just pay? You just keep paying until the kid gets out of school, and then you can tell people that your kid went to Harvard. I mean, excuse me. Again, I don't really understand the concept of that, but I think the idea that we're even in that space to me is crazy. I think that we really need to stop for a second and look at the most valuable asset that we have on this planet, and that is our kids. Our kids are literally the seeds, and I think that what we plant today is what is the way that they're going to grow and what they're going to grow into. It breaks my heart to see what's happening at the Amazon. I think that's a huge ecological disaster. I don't think anybody's taking that serious enough. I think we're distracted with our own problems. I promised myself I wasn't going to mention it, but these tragedies, just recently in Texas, just people just you can't explain it. I think that's the biggest issue right now is we're trying to explain things that we just can't explain. I think we have people doing things that we just don't understand. There's no way to comprehend it. You call it mental health, call it what you want. I just, again, if you look at the history of the world, there's always this oddity of individuals that have just, for some odd reason, decided that they're consumed on destroying something beautiful. And I think as logical human beings, we struggle to come up with an answer for that because we can't understand it. We often say we watch something on TV. Oh my God, how could they do that? How could that happen? Exactly? We don't know. We can't explain it. You can strap computers to these people. You can try to profile them and try to figure out how they were brought up. And it's been it's been the psychos that have had the most terrible upbringings, right? And then you've got the ones that have just had these the upbringing with no wants or needs of any kind. So what is it? What happens to these people that makes this happen? And I never want to talk about these things because thankfully I've never lost anyone to this type of tragedy, but unfortunately it's becoming more common all around. Like somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that was involved in some of these tragedies, and I'm not sitting here saying that I have any of the answers or pretend to even come close to having an opinion on them. But what I do know is we need to stop beating ourselves up about it because I don't think we're not responsible for these tragedies. It's not us. It's these individuals that have just chosen that this is what they're gonna do. But in anyway, just not to get too far off topic, and I really don't want to get into that that much. I just wanted to mention it and say that my deepest sympathies to those families that have suffered from those tragedies and their families as well. But moving on, the education piece of this, if you told me, that a state trooper a Massachusetts state trooper was making, let's just say, $20,000 a year. If you're listening from out of the state of Massachusetts, you probably wouldn't understand this as impactful as living in the state of Massachusetts. But the state of Massachusetts, it's ridiculously expensive to live here. So the idea that a state trooper, a police officer, state police officer, would be making a salary of $20,000 would I would think to myself, well, first of all, what's the quality of the officer at $20,000 a year? Like you can't raise a family, you can't function, at that level of salary. So, what kind of people are you drawing in to work that position, right? But if you told me that a state trooper is making six figures, I think that's reasonable. I think someone that's risking their lives on a daily basis to make everyone else safe. I think they should be salaried as such. That would call it what you want. Let's call it hazard pay. You know what I mean? With that said, doctors. I just read an article that we should be proud as Americans that as of 2019, the United States has become the leading cure of cancer. We've come leaps and bounds. I growing up as a child, whenever you heard someone the C word, you was an automatic death sentence. Today, that's not the case. I have close personal friends that are very, very dear and near and dear to me that recently had a battle with cancer and thankfully have survived and are in remission. And that's just amazing thing. And it's just just another example of the evolution of man and how far we've come and understanding a terminal disease that was killing millions and millions. I mean, it continues to kill many, many people. But at least, people like Alex Trebek, a guy with stage 4 cancer, which would have been a death sentence, and the Jerry Remy's of the world, I think who was on his 6th battle with cancer. These are survivors, and the doctors that help them and treat them are heroes. These people are saving lives, and they're doing things that that many of us can do. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very difficult. It's a passion. You have to really care, I think, about life and advancing longevity of life, and of all the commodities in the world. Time is one that none of us, regardless of what your financial situation is, has enough of. So these timekeepers spend a lot of time getting educated and learning how to be doctors, and how to be the best at what they do. And we're very fortunate that in Massachusetts we have some of the best doctors in the world and medical centers in the world. So with that said, our next greatest asset is what I mentioned earlier is children. The seeds of our future. So why wouldn't we, as logical and evolved species, look at our children and say, hey, we need to invest whatever we have to make these children understand that life is the most valuable and precious thing in the world. We will exhaust any efforts. Someone, a boat in the middle of the ocean, someone goes missing. We're dispatching helicopters and planes and search parties and millions of dollars. A child gets lost in the woods, and the whole community gathers and everybody's getting together, and no one is thinking about the costs that are involved with that. What we're thinking about is the idea that there is a life that can be saved, and we will exhaust all and any assets to do so. So when I say that, wouldn't you say that for your child and my child and all the children out there, to say, hey, we're going to invest whatever we can to help shape your mind and to make you the best possible human that you can be. True story. I'm going to come clean. I'm going to say something on this podcast that I will guarantee you that no one knows. My children don't know this, but I did not graduate high school. I was young. I had a lot going on in my life. There were other responsibilities that I needed to take care of, and unfortunately, high school wasn't one of them. I did go. I was at Bristol Aggie for a couple of years, and I went to Durfee High a couple of years, but I did not graduate, so I did not walk across the stage and was not handed a diploma. Um, Am I proud of that? No. And would I change the decision that I made and the choices that I made? Absolutely not. Um, I needed to be somewhere else, so that's what I chose. Um, Along with that, I was let's see, I was a sophomore. Yes, I was a sophomore. I was a sophomore, and I'll never forget. It was a literature class, um, and I remember the teacher's name. I could see his face, Mr. Loriano, um, and I was in his class. And guys, if I mentioned earlier that I'm not a big reader, and it was, I believe, the book was of Mice of Men, of Mice and Men. If anybody's read it, I mean, okay, I get the concept and the whole moral agenda behind it, but quite honestly, it's the most boring shit I've ever read in my life. So I really wasn't interested in that. Again, if anybody who knows me, my mind goes 100 miles an hour. I'm always thinking of 5 minutes from now. I'm not, 5 minutes ago. And it's really tough for me to sit down and get into reading. But, again, long story short, he was less than nice to me when I was in his class. And I remember he pointed me out. And he said to me, and he said, "Hey, Couto." I said, "Yeah, yeah." He said, "There's nothing wrong with working." He goes, "School isn't for everybody. Some of us just aren't meant to go to school. Some of us are meant to work." And he looked at me dead in the eye when he said it. And I knew what he was saying. And although I knew what he was saying, I was insulted by it. But I wasn't insulted by it because of the context of what he was saying. I was more insulted at the way he was saying it to me. Because what he was insinuating was that an educated person would go to school, and someone who is not educated would go to work. That's what he was saying to me. But the truth, in fact, and reality of it is that just because I'm not someone who is into school doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not intelligent, smart, or educated, or have the ability to figure out things that you can't, or could possibly even fathom. So the long end of it is, um, I shortly then after I ended up leaving school, but I never forgot what he said to me. And it wasn't that I was insulted again, like I was insulted by it, but I was determined that I wasn't going to allow him to ever make that statement true in my life. The funny things in life that drive you, if you're not first, you're last. But in this case, I didn't allow it to, and it really it helped me, and it made me determined. Shortly thereafter, I decided that I was going to get my GED. I didn't want to go on with some type of barrier like that was going to prevent me from achieving some great things in my life. So once I settled the things that I needed to take care of, um, I went and I was that summer. I went in and I took the test, and now I'd be happy to know that I received my letter from President Bill Clinton congratulating me, and I was at the top. I mean, I passed with high honors, and I was, officially a high school graduate. Did I do it with walking across the stage and shaking somebody's hand and people yelling and screaming? No. I did it privately with my mom in our kitchen, where she hugged me and told me that she was proud of me. Um, it was a very special moment in my life because although I was able to achieve that, I achieved it on my terms, which is what I've told my children all their lives. is to do what drives you and follow the direction that makes you happy. So anyway, so the funny story is that I did run into Mr. Laureano again, and this is probably guys 5 years ago, and he was muscling alcohol at a liquor store with a hand cart back and forth. I guess part-time job maybe to offset his retirement pay, maybe. I don't know, but I just found the irony in that he said that to me, and I'm not to brag or anything, but I've been managing people for probably 20 years now, in some type of management, supervisory, or leadership role for about 20 years. So the idea that he would end up, muscling liquor at a liquor store, and I would end up having the ability to shape people's lives every day, I found that funny. So don't ever let anybody tell you or try to tell you that you can't be or be what you want to be. I didn't let him do that to me, and you shouldn't let anybody do that to you. All right. So I know I keep getting off subject here, but back to the education piece. So again, we're paying doctors crazy money. And we have teachers that are coming in like Mr. Laureano, who are just bitter, not making enough money, miserable with their lives. They got the unions that continue to take their money, do not provide them with, the representation that they should have. So it becomes this, again, we're talking about children. We're talking about your kids, we're talking about my kids, and we're talking about their education, and we're talking about teachers going on strike because of salary arguments. Quite honestly, teachers should not be arguing about their salary. Teachers should be arguing about nothing. I think if you're somebody who spends more time with my kid on a daily basis than I do, then you need to be very happy with your life. You need to be in a space in your life that you're going to inspire and enlighten my baby every day. If you're not that person, then you shouldn't be teaching. And I don't blame teachers today that might be very unhappy and unfortunate with their situations. It's not their fault. You got to go to college, right? You got to get some type of degree, I would imagine, liberal arts, I guess, whatever you're required to do, an advanced mathematics, advanced English, social studies, I guess whatever field of education you want to go into. So you're already hitting the ground, and you get out of college, and now you gotta get some type of master's or bachelor's degree, and then you get on a list somewhere and hope that you can get a decent gig at some local small school where maybe hopefully the classes are of a decent count. You don't have 30 kids to teach all at once, with half of them with some type of ADD and no self-control. I think as parents we lose sight of that. I hate to use the analogy. I always, my kids, I say, you know what, guys, I'll drive you anywhere you need to go, but remember, I got to drive back. I'm dropping you guys off. You forget about me. I still got to drive back. And this is exactly the situation. We drop our kids off, whether it be at the bus stop or at the school, and we kind of just, hey, off they go. Off you go, little Jimmy. Go have a great day, little Susie. But the truth of the matter is these people are shaping our children, guys. If your kid's not happy and your kid's depressed, maybe the person that has the most influence in their lives has something to do with that. We really need to look at the way we're teaching our kids. How are you inspiring them? How are we inspiring them? By sticking them in a classroom with no air conditioning and writing things on the board and thinking that somehow these kids are going to be somewhat stimulated by this? No. I was talking to Rachel, and she it was a great example of what my son, the school he attends every year. I think when you're, not when you're sixth grade, but I think seventh grade, maybe sixth grade. Maybe, yeah, I think it's all three. Maybe it's all 3 years, but it doesn't matter. But either way, they go to a camp, and it's just 2 nights. But when they go to the camp, it's an educational camp, so they're learning But yeah, it's almost like a field trip, and they get to spend the night, and so it's a really cool setup. And my AJ went all 3 years, and every time that he went, I remember him coming back, and he was so happy about it. He was so enlightened, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were going to the shoreline, and they were picking up seashells, and there was somebody there explaining them to them how that seashell got there and what was living in it, and so it makes it come to life, and these kids become alive. The brain is stimulated by this massive information that makes sense. For me, I still learn at that level. I still need to be stimulated. I have trouble watching sitcoms. Why? Because if there's no beginning and end and there's no interest in, like, I'm just not into it. Like, I can't guys, I'm sorry. I hope this doesn't impact our relationship. I can't watch The Bachelor. I'm out. I can't do it. I can't do it. Big Brother, I'm sorry. Not my cup of tea. I don't watch it. I like watching things that inspire my mind, stimulate my brain, make me think of, about what I'm watching. And that's not to say that you can't enjoy that, and all the power to you. If that stimulates you and that makes you happy, that's fine. But for me, I just can't. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So, stimulating the brain is so important. And we're asking these kids, so the kid goes to school all day, blah, 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 blah. You bring them home, you throw them in front of the TV set, and what do? You turn on, for example, my granddaughter loves Puppy Dog Pals. And that's, it's a lot of high pitched sounds, a lot of color, a lot of stimulant on the screen. So she's very attracted to it, and that's a perfect example of what I'm saying. Why don't we look at how we're stimulating our children, getting their brains to function, inspiring the neurons in their brain that make them happy. Aren't we investing in our longevity, in our legacy? To have children go into an education system where the teachers are compensated appropriately because they are shaping our nation. I don't know if there are any educators or teachers that listen to the podcast, and if there are, I'm advocating for you. I'm saying that we need to really look at how the instructors and the mind shapers are really doing the best and having all of the resources that they need to inspire the most important, precious thing that we have in our lives. What's the answer to that, guys? We have millions and millions of dollars that we have, but are we willing to invest that in our kids? Or are we willing to invest that in missiles to, protect us from North Korea because they might send a missile to the coast of California? I don't know. What's the answer? I think that if we make smarter kids, then we don't need missiles. I think that's, regardless of anything, if one thing that anything's evident is that it's not the Cold War anymore. The fact that we can communicate with each other, and in a minute, we can send a tweet and it can literally shape the stock market in either direction is astounding. Well, we've bridged that gap. We don't have that gap anymore. It's gone. So why haven't we looked at why are we still teaching our children the same way that you and I were taught? I hate to keep bringing it up, but I'm in my 40s. When I was in school, we didn't have Google. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have all of the tools that we use to get information. At any moment, I can reach out to my Google device, and I can ask it a question, and it will give me the answer. So with that said, children today have that ability. They have the ability to extract the answer to any question that they have. So what are teachers teaching our kids? I'm asking. I don't, you know what I mean? Because if there are teachers out there that are 44 years old, 45 years old, my age, and let's just say you're a lot like me. I'm a tech guy. Do I struggle with social media? I do, guys. I struggle with social media a little bit. I have Instagram. I've had Instagram forever. I just started really getting into Twitter because I realize how important it is to the podcast. I keep scrolling in the wrong direction, right? right? I keep scrolling in the wrong direction because I'm thinking I'm on. Yeah, so yeah, I struggle with it. So does that mean that most of the teachers out there are struggling as well? Yeah, probably. I'm going to guess and say so. So are these the people that are shaping the minds of kids that already know the answer? So it's even worse. So now you got kids locked in a room, 6, 8 hours a day, and you're teaching them shit that they already know. And then we wonder why these kids are not stimulated. Come on. They get stimulated when they're behind their social media device. That stimulates them. Oh, put the phone down. Put the phone down. Really? Is that the answer? Why do they have the phone in their hand in the first place? Because it's stimulating their mind. These brains are thirsty for food, and they're going to consume whatever they can eat. You can either feed them Twinkies, or we can feed them the Holy Grail. Give them the means and the leadership to show them this is what you do with that information. You don't have to guess anymore. You don't even have to leave the house to go to the doctors anymore. You can have a consult. I can go on my account. I want to have a online consultation with a doctor. I'm not feeling well. And the doctor can prescribe me medication, and CVS will deliver my medication to my door. That's the world we live in. So how do we get to a solution where we are and again, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching here and I'm on a soapbox, guys. I just I think this is something that we really we have these crazy events taking place in our country, and crazy things are happening, and people just doing crazy shit that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And you try to come up with a solution as to why. What could possibly trigger someone to just kind of go off the deep end? And I just think, again, not knowing, not being educated, being fed information that is redundant, being fed information that is one-sided, applies logic that isn't even logic, right? I mean, listen, I was born Catholic. My mom Catholic. We got Jesus. You go to my mom's house and Jesus is looking everywhere. You can't do nothing. It was tough being a teenage boy in my house. Jesus was always watching. But ultimately, do I believe that religion and the story of Jesus and the rising of Jesus, and I might upset some people here, but I hope again, it's just my opinion. But do we believe that's gonna help us today? Do I believe that helped us, thousands of years ago when people just didn't know why there were algae blooms and why frogs were dying and why the Nile turned red? Well, we didn't have the tools and the education back then that we do now. We know why those things happened. Back then, they needed a reason, and it was the Almighty God frowning upon them for all the bad that they've done. You got these poor Hebrew slaves, right, dragging dirt around all day, and somehow they're being punished for doing what? Who knows? The gods were angry, right? Well, today I think we just are a little more educated, and we can explain those events. This massive Category 5 hurricane that's about to hit and sweep the coast of Florida and the Carolinas. 1,000 years ago, nobody would see that coming, and somehow the Titan, the king of the ocean, is angry, right, and punished it, right? No, it's not. It's a natural catastrophic event, and we can explain all of it today, and that's the world that we need to live in. The world that, of information, the idea that we can explain these things and understand how they work, and trying to stop scaring people by these imaginary ideas that only fuel uncertainty and not knowing. I'm okay with knowing that my destiny in this world will be the legacy of what I leave behind, whether I'm here on this planet or not. My legacy is what I pride on and what I hold nearest and dearest to me. So I encourage all of you to feel the same way. Invest in your children, realizing that these kids are your legacy. I want to live forever, and the way I plan to do that is through my impact on not only my family, but my friends, and the people that are listening here, taking the time to invest some of their personal time to listen to what I have to say. I don't. Again, I don't. I came on today and just kind of, really wanted to just, mention that idea of just looking at our kids and thinking, it's one of those things that we kind of leave to somebody else, and there's nothing wrong with that. My wife and I were always invested in, what the kids did and, how well they were doing, and always tried to inspire them. We would hang every single piece of artwork, and it had to be a 95 or up. You had to have a line. Otherwise, it was, papers everywhere. And we'd hang those on the door as well. And, the kids grew up and they always knew that we cared, and, we had an investment in their education. But again, we we want to talk about not comparing kids. And, it was, again, I know I've mentioned it a couple of times. I watched Sunday Morning on CBS, and it's one of those shows on TV that I just, I don't find it to be one-sided, and there's always some type of inspirational message at each one. And this week was, it was a freshman in high school, and he's sitting at the table by himself, and he texted his sister saying, I must be some kind of loser. I'm sitting by myself. And, I somehow the sister had some influence and reached out to some friends and said, hey, my kid brother is sitting by himself. And, so some of the seniors went over and they sat down with him, and just kind of make him feel like he belonged. To me, those are the moments. Those are the moments that, again, I think, where technology meets kindness, and just, we're really using the technology for the purposes of which they were designed, and that is for the good of people. If that little boy didn't have the ability to text his sister and express himself, she wouldn't have the ability to get that message out to her friends, where, now this boy isn't sitting there by himself, pondering, these ill thoughts, and, thinking that he may be different or less than someone else. Instead, these older kids, these tenured kids come over and they sit down and they have a conversation with him and make him feel like he belongs. Those are the moments that are shaping our children. Those are the moments that are making our children great. We're not just watching and letting each other drown. We're jumping in. We're trying to save each other, and that's fundamentally what it's all about. It shouldn't matter what you are, where you're from. It really should matter is the measure of a man's character. I never want to sound, that I'm not speaking in something that I understand, but I always want to sound that is relevant to how I feel. And I think, when I hear things like that, it inspires me, because we all need to look at each other and realize that it's a short ride here, and this idea that we're distracted with so many other things in life, and we're watching the years go by so quickly, and by the time you realize it, it's too late. My son's graduating high school this year, so for me, that's it. Megan graduated high school. She did the college thing, and now AJ is going to kind of be in that same situation. The guillotine. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And how are you going to do it? Is it continue education? Is it get a job? Whatever it is, but it becomes that point where now it's a deadline, and I think that that's a real problem for us, and our children, and our young adults, is that guillotine moment where now I've graduated. Now what do I do? For some of us, we're fortunate, the family business, or there's some type of direction, but for a lot of us, there's that uncertainty of just not knowing. I'm waiting to pick my spot and where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. Guys, I'll tell you, I got my GED, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I had the ability now. I had the ability to do whatever it is I wanted to do. Did I go to college? I did. I took a few classes over at UMass Dartmouth, got my business degree, and really just ended up in more of a technology role, rather than a business role. But we're talking years of, I had my own mechanic shop. I was a mechanic by trade, and somehow my paths led me in a direction of doing technology and doing engineering, and now really just doing an engineering maintenance facility kind of facilitator environment now, where I've applied and am applying all of those trades that I've learned along the way to what I'm doing now. Am I happy and satisfied? Yeah, absolutely. Again, I tend to mention it often that we are all owners of our destiny. So really make that investment. It's never too late to make a change. Never be satisfied. Because it will consume you. I can speak from experience when I say that. But don't let that consume you. Get past it. Sometimes the biggest sacrifice reap the biggest rewards. And I can say proof positive that was the case in my situation. Although scary at times, I always felt that I had the support from my family, so I was able to do the things that I needed to do that I thought was going to better my existence on this planet. So we're getting close to the end of this episode, and I just wanted to um, you know I wanted to just share with you guys just how I felt about that, and I encourage everyone to, if you can, just if you can get on and share your opinion. Let me know what you think. What do you think the direction is for our education system? Do you think this is the right way to keep doing it? Do we just keep dropping our kids off, or do we decide that we're gonna be a part of it, and we're gonna change it, we're gonna make it better? Because if we just continue to go in the same direction, I mean, what are we expecting from our kids, really? Again, to quote Albert Einstein, the true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If we want the world to change and become better, then we need to invest in the things that make it better, and that is the human race. It's us. It's our kids. We really have to compete with other countries, and how do you do that? The answer isn't spending more time in school. I think the answer is utilizing the time that you have these kids and inspire them, and using the time that you have with them to really get their attention, get them to feel that what you want for them is in their best interest. And I think once you get the trust of these kids, they'll do anything. They're limitless. These are the kids that are flying the F-115 jet fighters today. The ones that are flying these SpaceX rockets into space and are living on the International Space Station. These are our kids, guys. These are kids that and ladies. These are kids that were just like your kid and my kid. And somehow they've chosen a direction and have a determination to do one specific thing, and somehow that they've got it and they're doing it. I I sometimes wonder and question, if is it just easier to just kind of to let them just go and not care, or as good parents, do we say, hey, look, not only am I gonna pretend like I care about what my kid's doing in school, but I'm going to invest. I'm going to try to shape and apply some type of direction to this education, because otherwise it's just math and it's English. And if you can add 2 plus 2 and you can put a sentence together, then I guess that's it. I guess is that all, or are we going to teach these kids how to solve the problems that we can't solve today? They're going to be the ones that are inhabiting other planets and expanding the human race, and actually finally realizing that we can live on this planet in unison without having to mine for it. That it's all right on the surface for us to take everything we need and could want is right on the surface. There's no reason to dig a hole for it. Um, so that's really the episode, and that was really what I wanted to talk about today. And I hope that this really gets everyone just kind of really thinking about this, and whether you agree or you disagree. I really think that we really need to appreciate the teachers that are out there and doing what they do with what they have. It's a thankless job, especially today. Kids don't have the respect or attention that we did. They just don't. It's just the way it is. That's just the true reality of it. So the fact that these teachers can somehow control these kids, and although it does happen, the amount of violence these teachers are able to avoid is admirable. So my hats off to them. I just I don't want to be all sappy on this whole episode. I just wanted to it's a funny story. I have a very close friend of mine, Gary Cabral. We you go through your lives and your life, I should say, and you meet people, and people come in, people go out, people go in, people go out. But Gary's one of those friends that I can honestly say, what, we lived on Home Street. Damn, I'm trying to think how old we were. I mean, Gary had to be maybe 10 years old. I'm older than Gary, so maybe I was 12. No. All right, not to beat a dead horse here. 9 years old. I was probably 9 years old when I met Gary. So Gary's a little younger than me. So let's just say Gary's like 6 years old. From that time, he kind of moved into the neighborhood. It was funny. We had my friend Stephanie that lived in the house he was living in. He moved into, I should say. So long story short, the politics of the neighborhood, it wasn't good. We lost Stephanie. Stephanie moved out because Stephanie's parents bought a house, and all of a sudden this new guy, Gary, moves into Stephanie's house. So it was, you had the whole politics of Gary getting accepted into the group. But long story short, it didn't take him very long. Gary and his brother Randy, two fantastic individuals who both, are doing wonderful in their lives and quite well. But Gary was one of those friends that, again, like I only mention him because of the longevity of our relationship. Although we don't see each other every day, we do text each other often, and no matter how long it may be in between, we always kind of somehow come full circle and meet. But here's a perfect example, and I bring Gary up because we're kind of related to what we're saying today. Gary kind of went through the school system just how I did, and we all ended up in the workforce and muscling and hustling, and and now Gary, he's in real estate, and he's doing fantastic with his life. Gary was one of the Fab Four that we were funny. We were I'll tell you, I had my Eagle talent at the time. I'll make this quick because I know we're going on an hour, but I had my Eagle talent at the time, and we were young, in our 20s, light 20s, very light 20s, and we were going to nightclubs, hanging out in Providence. And never went up to Boston, but more so Rhode Island and Providence. We were always going to clubbing, and it just so happened at this night, at the time, if anybody lived in Fall River, you remember Plymouth Avenue, and you remember that people used to go on the Avenue and they'd cruise the Ave up and down the Ave. And in this case, and then all of a sudden, people were parking, and people had cars, and it was, we'd go up and down the Ave, and you'd show off your car, and people would park, and the police decided they were going to be doing this huge crackdown, and they weren't going to allow people to be going up and down the avenue anymore, and parking at these establishments because people were intimidated. They weren't going in the stores because there were too many cars, yada yada yada, right? Like there were worse things we could be doing, right? But anyway, this night we were all planning. It was me, it was Gary, Chris, Jay, and we were picking up Stephanie. Stephanie at the time was working at it was Ocean State Job Lot at the top of William S. Kent Boulevard. Hilarious. So she was working there. Chris and her were dating at the time, and we were going to go club and dancing. So this is probably like right around closing time. So I think they closed at 9:00. So we had pulled in. I had my Eagle. Chris had his Eagle. and we had pulled right up front where the I'm embarrassed to say it, the Blockbuster Video is, right? So we're parked there. We're kind of just talking, waiting, blah blah blah, and like we're just watching the clock. This has to be about like 8:30. Stephanie gets out at 9 o'clock, and we're just kind of sitting there, and we're not even out of our cars. We're sitting in our cars, and we're shooting the shit, and then all of a sudden, it was amazing. Like it was cops from every direction. Like you just lights came on from like I don't even know where they were. Like they came out of the fucking bushes. I before I knew it, I could hear, and I'm like, I see them all surrounding us, and I look over at Jay, and I say, "It's all right, man. We're just gonna drive out of here." And I started my car up, and immediately over the speaker he says, "Driver, shut off your engine." And Jay Cavallo says, "I told you, shut up your engine." So I shut up the engine. They all come up to the cars. Get out of the car. I mean, like the whole fiasco. Hands out of the car. They come over. And thankfully, like none of us got arrested. But out of the four of us, Gary was the youngest. I think at the time, was Gary. Gary was still home with his parents. He was still living home with his parents. So I'm not. He had to be 21. Maybe he was 21. I can't remember. But anyway, long story short, the cops come and they realize, it was almost like a bullshit thing. I mean, here we are, and I'm like, what's going on? Oh, you guys are getting arrested. You guys are going to jail for trespassing, blah, blah, blah. Like, I couldn't believe what was happening. Like, we're sitting there, I'm like, no, we're waiting for our friend Stephanie. Oh, yeah, sure you're waiting for your friend Stephanie. Long story short, we ended up in the cop car. Gary being the youngest one, and he ends up, it was the four of us. So the three of us went in the back, Jay, Chris, and myself, and then Gary was in the front seat. And because he was in the front seat, of course it was Gary. It wouldn't be anybody else. He got handcuffed. So out of the four of us, right, he's the youngest one. He gets handcuffed, and he gets put into the front seat. And it was the funniest part of this, and it's funny now. At the time, it wasn't funny. Was when he got in the seat, the cop gets in, and Gary looks over and says, "Excuse me, officer, the cuffs are a little too tight. Would you mind loosening them up?" And and although like we're all looking at each other like, yeah, right, the cop was actually nice enough to say, let me, and he did, and he reached over and he put the key in and he loosened up the cuffs for Gary. Again, we were no threat, guys. Like we're all dressed up, like again, we're all Guidos, right? Because we're all going clubbing. We're all dressed up, like we're gonna go out. I have my ego talent. This thing, I mean, if anybody remembers or knows me from back then, I have a picture, I can post it. Today, I'll be honest, I'll say it was the most gaudiest thing you ever seen. It was the yellow racing stripes over the thing. I had the big yellow eagle on the door. It looked like a postal truck on steroids is what it looked like. Again, that was kind of like the more, I guess that probably is the reason why we got arrested, because they did think that we were probably hanging out and looking for a race or whatever it was. But, we ended up getting taken down to the police station. They go through all our stuff. They're making their jokes, and, really, again, none of us were punks. None of us had any police records. I was very confident of that. They bring us down, they put us in jail, they make us wait till like 3 o'clock in the morning. And during this time, like, we're all talking to each other because we're all within relative distance in the jail cells. And we're trying to plot, like, who's calling who, like, who's going to, I couldn't call my mother. If I called my mother, she would have had a heart attack and she would have never made it. I mean, the idea of me calling my mom to tell her that I got arrested and I was in jail and she needed to come get me, guys, I would have stayed the night in jail and just walked home in the morning. We all kind of, the short straw ended up at Gary's lap. So again, for some reason the story keeps ending up with Gary, and so Gary calls his dad. Oh, and I remember Chris called his dad and told his dad, somehow we posted bail. I forget who posted bail for us. Was it Chris's dad? Maybe somebody came down and posted bail for us, but we couldn't leave until I guess the judge came down and signed the papers or whatever it was. So it was like 3 o'clock in the morning by the time we were to leave. And so we plotted that Gary was going to call his dad and give it for his dad to give us a ride. So he did. And it didn't take long. It didn't take long for Gary's dad to get there in his red, I will never forget, it was a cranberry Caravan, and he pulled up front, man. He slammed those brakes. opened the door, gets out of the car, walks over to all three of us, looks at Gary straight in the face. You come with me. And he takes Gary by the arm and he runs back into the police department. Now the three of us are looking at each other like, oh shit, right? Like he is in trouble. So I get Gary's dad takes him back inside, tears him apart, like again, back at Gary, right? And his dad, just demanded to know what it was that Gary did and why he was arrested and what he was doing, rah, rah, rah. I mean, because of course, as a parent, you're thinking the worst case scenario. And the cop at the window is like actually telling him, like, listen, man, it really wasn't a big deal. Like, these guys got picked up for trespassing. They were hanging out in a Benny's parking lot. Like, relax. You're really overreacting here. So, and I guess the cop telling him that only infuriated his dad even more. So he come running out and he looked directly at me and he says, You don't talk to my son, never again. And he takes Gary, gets in the car, shuts the door, does like a neutral drop, peels out, takes off, and the three of us are standing there looking at each other going, all right, so now how do we get back to the cars, right? Because now we're at the Fall River Police Department. Benny's is, without exaggeration, like 10 miles away. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. What do? Off we go. We walked all the way back to the cars. Got in the cars. Long story short, we kind of checked in. I mean, guys, back then there's no cell phones. So, we checked in. Stephanie had no idea what had happened to us. Nobody knew what had happened to us. So we ended up, reaching out to those. And I remember getting home. And then the next day, my mom saying, well, you got home late last night. And I confessed. I told her, oh, well, I got arrested. And of course, her jaw hits the floor. She couldn't believe it. Portuguese. Oh my God. Back then it was taboo. If the police came, listen, anybody who's Portuguese knows if the police come to your house, you hope the police are going to take you, because if they don't, the beating you're going to get when they leave. So for me, it was actually easier to tell my mom that I was arrested than actually a police officer come to my house to tell her. So I told her, cleared the air with her. But the long story is, even though we went through that challenge, Gary and I, and even though the Romeo and Juliet romance was a demand of his dad, we still managed to be friends, and we still stayed in touch, and till this day we still are very close, and we share a lot of the same ideas and thoughts, and realize that the struggle is real, and we both came up, and we're doing great things with our lives, and him and his daughter, he's a great father, and he's an inspiration to anyone who's out there and knows what it's like to raise a child. And not by yourself, not by no means, because her mom is very involved as well. It's just again, when you do it individually in separate lives, it's a challenge. So hats off to him in that. And I'm hoping that at some point I could bring Gary in and he'll sit on the podcast with us, because not only is he's a hoot, he's quite the holler. He has a great opinion on things, and a great opposition and ideas, and he always challenges a conversation. So I would look forward to sitting down and talking to him real soon. So with that said, I was just that funny story of us getting arrested. There's a whole other part of that story that I will share in the coming podcast. You guys just have to remind me in that. Okay, so I left you at we drove home, and that was a night, but now we have to go to court, and that was a whole other episode, and I'll have to tell you about that at the next one. And Gary's a big Gary's a big part of that one as well, and when I think about it, it makes me laugh of those fun times. I mean, at the moment, when you're going through those things, it's a worst case scenario, and you're like, oh my God. But today you look back on them and realize that they're really just a drop in the bucket. So I hope Gary doesn't mind me mentioning that. Like I said, my invitation is out there for him to come on the show, and maybe he can enlighten us on a little bit of that, and give us his side of the story. So with that said, I really don't want to go too much further. I don't want to get too crazy, but I really just wanted to mention a couple of things. One, listen, if you can, The Red Cross is really in need of blood. Especially with these major catastrophes and these things happening, people tend to realize the last thing is donating blood. So if you can, and even if you're, I guess the big push is for O. The O negative, I believe it is the universal. If you are, I am, and so I donate as often as I can, and I would encourage everyone to do the same. One donation can save 3 lives. So imagine that could be someone that you care about, and if they didn't have that life saving blood, it could be catastrophic. So please go out there and do so. And on a lighter note, podcast. I'm really getting into. I always want to improve the podcast. I always want to make it better, and it's really why I'm always asking for you and your input, and asking everyone if you could just share your ideas and your comments, and tell me what you enjoy about the show. If there's other things you want to talk about, and I'm always encouraged to bring someone in. And I really just wanted to get the podcast to have a personality, and just so that you really you have an expectation when you turn on the Bobby Couto show. You know what you're going to be listening to, and it's going to either inspire you or just make you think maybe a little different about the things we take for granted. But you're doing that. I've come across a couple of podcasts, and I did come across this one called Small Town Mentality. Really dynamic show. It's a couple of guys out in Wyoming. I think it's part of this. I think it's called DCR, Dramatic City Productions. I believe is like the parent company. But these guys do a podcast, and it's it's hilarious. A couple of guys, Ben and Randy. They're really good together, and they got a couple of episodes up that I've been listening, and I once I started listening, I couldn't stop, and I'm trying to get through all of them now. And it's just a different way of thinking. If you enjoy just some lighthearted, conversation, the dynamics between them is fantastic. They always get good guests on the show. Just go give them a listen and check it out, and then let me know what you think. I'm kind of going through it myself now, and I really just want to just share the whole podcasting journey with you guys that I'm having, and kind of giving you an idea of some of the shows that I'm listening to that are kind of giving me direction, and maybe just enlightening me on how to get these podcasts out to you, and just not words in your ears, but something that's going to entertain you and make you want to listen again and again. So again, I encourage everybody to hit us up on the Instagram, hit us on Twitter, hit us on Facebook. Let me know what you think. I really appreciate the comments. I'm sitting behind the microphone, hoping that this message is getting out clearly to everyone, and that you guys want to listen to the show, and you want some more content, and really bringing in some other elements into the show. I love to laugh, so I don't want the show to always be about saving the world. I like the show to be lighthearted at times, and funny, and just again entertaining. So I'm hoping that maybe Rachel will come on the show. I know Steve said he's going to come on the show, and we'll bring a couple of different people in, and who knows, maybe we can do 2 or 3 people and really get a different element. Again, like I mentioned, that Small Town Mentality podcast. They got like 4 or 5 people in the room at any one given time, and it really adds for that dynamic of conversation in all directions, rather than it just being one point of view and one voice for a solid hour. Again, I encourage you guys to go listen, go give them a listen, go give them a like, give us a like, give us a listen, please comment. Again, the show is doing fantastic. It's getting, a lot of plays, and I'm so excited to just be able to, publish another podcast, and the idea that everyone is listening, and that it's reaching people, is very humbling to me. So I just want to thank everybody again, and I know you have a lot of choices, and you guys can listen to a lot of shows, and the idea that you guys are dedicating an hour of your lives to listen to mine, I'm very grateful for that. So until the next time, I will I will have my ears to the ground and be checking on comments and questions, and again, looking for any input and ideas from anyone. If anybody's interested in getting some information across the airwaves, let me know. I'll share it. I'm open-minded. We talk a little bit about everything here. Again, I'm limitless. I'm not bounded by any single one idea or thought. So let's share those ideas together, and let's make a soup, man. I think that's what makes the world a beautiful place, is that we all live in a place where we can all have our own ideas and somehow merge those thoughts and create amazing, beautiful things, regardless of what language we speak. So again, I thank everybody, and we will talk soon. And remember, all roads lead here.